small steps, and every time I'm falling, I go to new depths. I will become who I've always been.
Welcome home, inspired entrepreneurs. It's Deborah, and today's episode is for you if you're stuck in the middle. Not at the beginning where ideas flow and energy's high, and not at the end where the results roll in, but in that messy, uncertain, and sometimes painful middle, when your support feels far away, your direction feels unclear, and you start to question whether you can keep going. So if you've ever felt like you're walking alone in your business, if your momentum is fizzled and clarity's nowhere to be found, the plan broke and now you're left holding the pieces, this episode's for you. Recently, I did something hard. I hiked 21 miles for 𝗺𝗫, a charity that funds research for childhood cancer. What unfolded over those 13 grueling hours, miles, blisters, became a mirror for what it really means to grow something meaningful, to stay in it, to keep walking when it hurts. And here's what you're going to walk away with today. You'll see how the messy middle isn't a detour. It's the work. It's where your business takes shape and where you discover who you really are as a leader. You'll understand why your nervous system, not your to-do list, may be the real thing calling the shots. And you'll leave knowing how to find your footing when the things that you're doing don't go as planned and clarity feels out of reach. This is the episode that reminds you you're not behind. You're just in the part that builds you. I'm going to play an excerpt from the hike. Let me set it up. We got there at 5:30 a.m. and the gates were supposed to be open early for us, but they weren't. Instead of starting the planned route, we had to pivot and we had to figure out another route just to get to the starting line.
Okay, update from the trail. We are just about a mile and a half in. We had a detour. We did not start where we were supposed to. We have a great group leader though, so we're not lost. And doing good. We haven't hit the first big elevation yet. We've still got a few miles before we hit a real doozy. So there's my update from the ultimate hike, Northern California.
Not part of the plan, but I knew where I was going. The destination hadn't changed. I still had energy. I still had optimism. It was the beginning. We've all been there in our business. It's all excitement, fun and games, and anything's possible. And that's where I was at that mile and a half range. Turning point number one is the path will shift, but the commitment stays. This is where so many founders fall off. The moment that the plan breaks, they stop. And I've been guilty of this myself. But commitment means you keep moving towards the finish line, even with a detour. So let's explore what's really happening under the hood when this moment hits. Your brain experiences a broken plan as cognitive dissonance, and it shuts down the reward system. Your dopamine dips and the brain registers danger, not possibility. Spirit says this is sacred ground. The soul doesn't care how you get there. It cares that you get there. Commitment isn't about certainty. It's about devotion. The first few miles were energizing. I was hiking with the crew. The vibes were high, just like those first few months or even years in your business. The adrenaline, the hope, the vision, everything feels possible. But somewhere between mile 8.5 and mile 14, things got really quiet. People were spread out, and some were ahead of me, some were behind. My hiking companions weren't there beside me, and other hikers were passing me by. And then I felt this sharp sting. Oh my God. And I don't know if it was a bee or a wasp, but man, I was alone and the pain was real. And for a moment, I actually panicked. And I took a breath and I reached for my map to refocus, just like I tell my clients to do. They look at their inspired growth map to their 5-year vision, their 1-year goals, their monthly milestones, and most importantly, their inspired purpose to stay intentional, to calm the nervous system, to recalibrate the brain. Turning point 2 is when things fall apart, don't wander, reorient. So what does that look like in action? Well, here's where science and soul come in. So the science says when uncertainty hits, your amygdala, your emotional fire alarm kicks in. Your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down. No wonder you can't think clearly. And then spirit says you need to pause, listen. Clarity comes not from pushing, but from presence. Stillness is energy. So in other words, the map doesn't just guide your strategy, it calms your system. That's the power of having a purposeful plan. So I breathed, I talked myself down, and I kept going. This is a good place to pause and take a deep breath together. So far, we've talked about what happens when the plan breaks and how staying committed, even when the path shifts, is a choice you get to make. We explored how your nervous system reacts when uncertainty hits and why pausing to reorient isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And now we're going even deeper. Let's explore what to do when quitting feels like the easier option. Mile 14. My feet were wrecked. I'd already had them taped twice, and the aid station crew looked at me and they said, look, you've done an amazing job. If you stop here, it's still a win. And I thought about it. I really thought about it. But then I also thought about the people who donated to 𝗪𝗀. I thought about the kids going through cancer treatment. And I thought about the months of training and about how often my clients and maybe you hit this exact moment in your business. Turning point 3 is when quitting feels easier. Reconnect to your why. Easier doesn't mean aligned. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to keep going. Science says the brain is wired to conserve energy and avoid pain. It whispers, you've done enough. But with self-regulation and purpose-based motivation, you can override that system and access deeper reserves. And spirit says your why is your lifeline. When your legs give out, your purpose carries you. Let it. These are the moments that clarify who you are and what you're committed to. So I did something brave and I asked for help. There was a father and son nearby and I said, hey, would you be willing to hike the rest with me? I'm going to slow you down, but I really need to finish this. And they said, yes. They stayed with me until the final switchbacks. And then a 𝗪𝗀 ambassador and the sweeper brought me in. Yep, I was the last person off the trail. From 5:45 a.m. to 7:15 p.m., 13 and a half hours. Turning point 4. Leadership isn't doing it all yourself. It's knowing when to ask for support. So let's unpack what that looks like through both lenses. Science says connection co-regulates the nervous system. So asking for help calms your brain. Isolation increases stress hormones, while companionship boosts resilience and problem solving. Spirit says you were never meant to do this alone. Community is a sacred contract. Let yourself be carried. This is leadership, not just forging ahead alone, but choosing connection. Let's put this all together. The trail will change. Stay committed. You will lose your way. Pause and reorient. It will get hard. Let your why anchor you. And you'll need others. Let them walk with you. This is how you stay in the game when every part of you wants to quit. This is how you lead yourself through the messy middle. And this is how your next level is born. Not in the outcome, but in the becoming.
Every time I'm falling, I go to new depths.
All right, inspired ones. Today we talk through what it really means to lead yourself through the messy middle. We talked about what to do when the plan breaks, how to pause and reorient instead of spiraling, how to reconnect to your why when it would be easier to quit, and why asking for help isn't weakness, it's leadership. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Where in your life or your business is it time to recommit, even if the path looks different than you expected? If this episode moved you, inspired you, or even made you pause for a moment, please share it with someone who's in their own middle right now. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, and I would love to hear from you. Seriously, come find me on Instagram or shoot me a message. You can look in the show notes for that contact info and tell me what landed. If you're ready to walk your path with more clarity, calm, and momentum, I'd love to walk with you. Until next time, keep going. You're becoming. Welcome home. Welcome to the Inspired Entrepreneur.
I will grow in my own way. Every day I'm changing, I'm taking small steps, and every time I'm falling, I go to new depths. I will become who I've always been.
And because I care about you and want to keep things above board, here's the quick legal bit. The Inspired Entrepreneur podcast and content posted by 𝗵𝗵𝘁 is presented solely for general information, educational, and inspirational purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It's not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnosis or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay obtaining medical, mental health, legal, or business advice for any situation and should seek the assistance of qualified professionals for any such conditions or decisions.